for this season, and they've been extremely popular, and we get a bonus price for those 6 campsites. As we look at City Park, we did increase the seasonal salary slightly, and that's to accommodate some of the campground security that
Correct.
we used out there this summer, which it worked out. We teamed with Lake Area Technical Institute, and that worked out very well, having that person doing security for us. Excellent relationship with the police department, and worked out extremely well. So that was the increase there. Not a lot of other significant increases in at City Park, except for electricity. We're asking for an increase there, and that's kind of to help offset some of the costs from Winter Wonderland, and also not really a bad thing, because if we're using more electricity, we're normally getting more campers. But I know that as campers grow, get bigger and larger, they're actually taking more juice too. It used to be you didn't go over a 30 amp receptacle, and now everything we got at City Park is 50, 30, 20. But Doug says they still blow fuses once in a while when you get multiple air conditioners and then multiple units on a site. It does take a lot of power. So that's why we're looking for the increase in the electrical line item there.
Jay, can I back us up to the revenue for a minute? Why are we looking at an actual decrease from 2018 budget versus 2016 actual, especially when we've added those full service pads in the meantime? I mean, 2016 actual 117,000. For 2018 now we're budgeting 107,000.
I mean, we went $6,200 increase, Glenn. It's such a weather-driven facility.
No, I understand that. I'm looking at 2016 actual
right
versus 2018 budget, and we're actually going down.
Yeah, I mean, we budgeted for 100,700, which is what we anticipated for this year. We did increase that $6,200. The 117 it's been good camping seasons. All we need is 3-4 rain weekends, and we won't be able to make budget. So I'll say it's cautious, but it's realistic.
Is it fair to say that the actual for 15 and 16 was higher than what was budgeted?
We had record years those 2 years.
So I think that's probably the right go here.
Was that weather related, the record years?
We've had great, camping, like even this year with the mild, it's been a good week or a good year, but we did increase 6,200 because we do see historically we are far exceeding that $100,000 mark. But cautiously, we didn't go to exactly what we're bringing in the last 2 fiscal years, but we did raise it 6,200, anticipating that we will continue to grow. And like you said, Glenn, we do have the full service, which are $8 more per camp pad, which I believe is $3,600 a year.
I just didn't realize that 2015 and 2016 were unusually good years, so that makes sense.
Okay.
Well, we were at 58 to 5,900 campers both those years, so that's a tremendous number for a 72-unit campground.
Apologies if you already said this, but does the Optimist rent the park, or how does that work when they take it over for Winter Wonderland?
It's been discussion with both staff and the board. They don't. The city swallows that electric bill.
Which is how much?
We're anticipating something between, it's hard to tell exactly, but now with Doug out of that house for one season, it's a little more accurate, and we're anticipating probably $1,800 to $2,000.
One thing about it, the Optimist Club puts that money right back into the community, though, many, many times over. What they make there, they just turn around and you apply for it in the community, and it goes into somebody else's budget, and I think that's still a pretty good thing for us to maintain, let them have it. And, if they took it to Sioux Falls, but they don't, they turn it right back to the community.
Yeah.
And they did provide that new archway sign.
Looks very nice out there.
Which has been a great addition. So,
Jay, I have a question. I've seen on there merchandise for resale on several of your guys. What is that?
Merchandise resale, like say the aquatic center, that'd be our concession goods.
Okay.
You know, softball, baseball complex last year, we anticipated actually providing the concessions instead of farming it out. We never did that. We let the Lake City Slow Pitch still run it. But merchandise resale, example in City Park, that would be firewood. It's something we buy and then resell. So this was firewood, but now we actually contracted out the full service where they actually bring it in, they bundle it, they wrap it, and we get a percentage of revenue off that. So that's why we decreased that amount, because we're no longer buying the firewood, we're just getting strictly revenue off it.
Okay.
I know in past budget times and outside of that too, there's been some discussion, albeit probably somewhat limited, about not having a reservation system for this campsite. The locals would hate it, I think. But it is extremely difficult to get people to come to our community on a lot of weekends because you aren't available to reserve sites. So you go through there on any given weekend, and vast majority of them are Watertown people. Is there? I'm going to bring the topic up again. That is there a point at which we should look at some reservation or have some that can be reserved? You know, carve some portion of them out, because I would hope that part of our goal here is not only providing it to the community of Watertown, but to also have it be a revenue generator to bring people into our community as well. And that doesn't happen out there very well to the extent that it could if they don't have some assurity that they could get a place to stay.
And isn't there an ordinance or a restriction that it cannot?
Yeah.
How does that read?
When we built the North Loop, we signed off an agreement with both the state and private campgrounds that we would not take reservations. There's a written document that says we're a first come, first served basis campground. For a municipality campground to expand, they have to get permission from any state and private campgrounds, which in the case when we did the North Loop was the Prop in Florence, in addition to Sandy Shores and Pelican Lake. And we secured all those permissions, but part of the underlying agreement that we would not be a reservation-based facility. And there's no documented time on that agreement. This happened, whenever it was 8 to 10 years ago when we built the North Loop. But the only option we'd have is we can do reservation-based if we go back and get permission. Not saying we can't by codified law or anything like that, but we do need permission from the same people that gave us permission to expand. So we'd have to go to the state park system. We'd have to go to, right now it's currently private, would be the Prop, Florence, and I'm not sure the new one over by Cloud9 Golf Course may be annexed in as an official campground. That's the only way we can actually do a reservation system, with the exception of camping cabins, which is a brick and mortar. That we could do reservations without any permission, which is in our budget to do camping cabins in the next year or two. So, but no, literally due to an agreement, we can't without permission.
Terry,
That agreement covers the old part of the campground as well?
Yes.
do you need permission to add camping cabins, or just to,
not brick and mortar camping cabins, just camping pads.
Reservations notwithstanding?
Right.
You don't need permit. You can build as many cabins as you want.
We could
without
build
anyone's-
camping cabins without permission because we're not in competition with any private. They're not providing those.
Oh, okay.
So with the pads, like the Prop example is long term, so that's why they don't want the city doing reservation.
Let's get some of those cabins.
Yeah, and in retrospect, if you do look at revenues, we honestly do far better because we are a reservation system. If you want the 4th of July weekend, you come in 12 days early to be able to get that. You're camping Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. You might not even be in the camper, but you got your unit out there to make sure you got a spot for the actual weekend.
Do we have any space for expansion, or are we kind of landlocked in? I mean, can we go to the east across the road? Is there any possibility?
You know, we
for
haven't
that?
looked at the east, but we have identified 5 spaces. You know, it's not much, but right by the Veterans Memorial on the very north side of the North Loop, we've never put a pad on the right in front of veterans. When you first come in the campground, there's space for probably 2 to 3 more. We looked at that shelter 1, which is the one. If you've ever been on the lake and you see the initials in the roof, that's shelter 1. You know, we're looking at that would be what we dispose of to put the camping cabins in that area. So we have potential in the existing footprint to get about 5 to 6 pads and up to 2 to 3 camping cabins as part of a master plan.
The camping cabins pay themselves off fairly quickly, don't they?
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Is that something that we could at least ask? It doesn't hurt to ask. And I wouldn't open it up all of it, but I think it would be reasonable to at least carve out some piece that can be reserved, even if it's 5 or 10 units. But I'm not coming to Watertown to drive here to find out I can't get a spot.
Yeah. Right now, we're at about 84% local at
Yeah.
City Park.
Yeah.
You know, when we did the last 3-month survey, looking at license plates, we're about 84% local. For that reason, you know, you don't risk coming from Sioux Falls to maybe get a spot. You know, we do have the pull-throughs, which are for your larger, new modern style campers that maybe we could potentially look at that. Whether we'd get kickback from the other campgrounds, I'm not sure. You know, this is a number of years ago when it was a pretty tight market. But now, you know, they may say, you know, do what you want to do. All we can do is ask, like you
Just
said.
write a letter, right?
So that's what I'm saying. If we ask and don't use it, so be it. But if we ask and find there's merit, maybe that's what, you know, you guys should discuss internally.
Right.
I know where you're coming from, Terry, because you can go out there and there's like no campers, but yet they're all booked.
Right.
And
And
which
the,
is
and the board's
unfortunate,
taking
too.
steps to alleviate that with, you know, you just can't go put your name on a marker anymore and not have a camping unit. We've dealt with a lot of that issues, but, you know, I do think revenues, we'd see a far decline if we did do a reservation system. We'd be more popular amongst the region, but we'd probably see a revenue decline.
Yeah, because we wouldn't be very popular with the resident campers. But like in the state park system now, you cannot camp without a reservation. Even if you come in, first come, first served, before you pull onto that site, you make a reservation to use it.
Why would there be a revenue decline?
Well, example, say I camped and I can go online and get Friday, Saturday night, and I reserve it. No longer do I need to come in on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. You know, so that's 3 days that we're grossing that revenue because I want the weekend spot. So,
But that's going to be smaller, I think, than you think coming from state park experience, because it used to be that way, that they would just take the Friday and Saturday night of a weekend. But now, as all the camping spots and campgrounds become more and more popular, you see that people are coming in Wednesday or Tuesday to make sure that they have that special site, that favorite site for the weekend, and especially holiday weekends. You know, even with the reservations, you were seeing a lot of 12 to 14 night reservations.
And you could make that a requirement if you did a reservation, where it was a minimum 4-night stay if you did, or 5-night stay with a reservation.
absolutely.
You could, yeah.
Well, I think it comes back to, if I could use the phrase, what's the mission of the campground? Is it, it's a city campground? Is it there for the city? Or is it a campground that we wanted to bring people to Watertown? I think we need to answer that question before you start getting any split, because I've heard the same stories. You can reserve at Sandy, you can reserve at Memorial, but out-of-towners aren't even gonna try and go there. And I think I'm kind of thinking the way Mike is, that, you know, we do want to attract people to Watertown, and that's kind of a deterrent.
I have to ask the question, too. If you come from out of town and you want to camp, if you come from Sioux Falls or Madison or wherever the heck you come from, don't you typically have everything you need with you? I mean, I don't know where we get revenue. Maybe they go in and go to the movies. I don't know, but I'm just wondering, you know, if it's camping, what kind of additional revenues would you get from somebody from out of town?
You'd be surprised, like in the local parks here, with my experience at Pelican and Sandy Shore, that they do come into town. Absolutely. You
Bruce-
know, they'll.
Restock.
Bruce, we camped down at, my wife and I camped down at Yankton earlier this year, and
Not liquor store, Mike.
well, between the liquor store and but you buy gas. It was hot. The girls went into town. They went shopping. We went out and ate a couple times because you're down there for like 4 days. We've camped up north of Aberdeen. We were into Aberdeen. You know, we went golfing. Those are the kinds of things that it does happen. You don't just. Yeah. Anyway, I just food for thought because it comes up.
Yeah.
It does come up periodically, and like I said, it's not going to be a local push because they like the way it is now.
Absolutely.
But if I look, Don's exactly right. What is our goal or objective or mission with it? If it's just to provide 84% of the people that go out there for Watertown, well, then so be it. We're good. But if we want to make it more available to whomever, then the reservation system does work.
My summary point is it's not an attraction right now. I mean, and we talk about attracting people to the lake and attracting people to Watertown. It's not serving that function. And again, that might be okay if that's our objective.
No, I think that's the thing, Don. We, in all the years I've been here, there's never been a directive. No one's asked that question. It's always been City Park. It's always been a first come, first served, local community campground. And, it's something probably we'll put on our board agenda, at least at the committee level, to start addressing and then bring it to the council for,
Work session or something like that.
It's just hard to know on the revenue side. Right now it's a self-sufficient campground. It's a hard decision to make. It really is.
And okay, so do we push our residents to go somewhere else so we can bring other people in? I'd like to keep them here, our people too, so.
Right.
I do see Pelican Recreation Area with the new Premier softball complex. That's going to be an easy swing from Pelican into the new softball complex, taking the back roads, and I bet it's going to increase their camping. Right by Ray's house.
Is there any other questions, comments on City Park?
I have one. What's our occupancy rate normally on a weekend? Are we full?
100%.
Yeah, we're well over 100. We're probably about 120% with double ups. Meaning we got 72 units, but we allow double ups, so two campers can access one pad. And typically, of the 72, about 30 are doubled up on during your Memorial Day to Labor Day season. So yeah, we're well in excess of 100% on weekends.
So are we running on average 95% total? I mean, if you would take the
we're not that
120
high. If you go on a 120-day season, we're probably around that 65%, which obviously May and October
Right.
skew those numbers, but
Yeah.
definitely Memorial to Labor Day, we're at probably 120% occupancy.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay. We'll keep moving just kind of for the sake of time. We're going to move into forestry and cemetery. These are departments that are underneath the Park and Recreation and the Park Board umbrella. However, they do go back into the general fund. So any of these discussions don't involve the Park and Rec fund itself. These go back into the general fund. And so you'll kind of see that. As far as changes, there were very minor changes in forestry in their overall budget. And the only big item was there was a request for a chipper, and because we had a pretty significant amount that we needed to trim out of the general fund, that did not stay in and is not included in the mayor's proposed budget. But I know Jay was okay with that, and they can get by with what they're doing. So not a negative impact on the department itself. Does anybody have any specific questions on forestry? Not a lot of change, not a lot going on. They just do a great job doing their job, and we appreciate them. Next one is cemetery, and they're another department. They do a really good job of keeping things in line. They don't really have a lot of movement. They don't have a lot of capital costs. There isn't a lot of staffing, so you don't have wide fluctuations of change. So, does anybody? They didn't have any of their capital items removed from the mayor's proposed. We don't have really any significant changes other than for some reason, we have never really budgeted to reclaim cemetery lots. And don't even ask me what that is, because you'll stump the finance officer right there. But we've consistently, in the last 7-8 years, is the farthest I looked back, we've had expenditures there. So I just kind of felt that it was probably appropriate to at least put a budget there, because you're going to anticipate spending it. Just to have a better, otherwise you're using other line items to cover where you're not budgeting for, and it just, to me, it just becomes a more cumbersome process. So I did, that wasn't something that they requested. I guess I kind of requested that just for better budgeting purposes. And so that's why that $2,000 increase is there. Otherwise, does anybody have any?
Shelley, just to clarify, there is nothing budgeted for the proposed vet cemetery, you're correct?
No, not that you guys
No,
talked
we did
about.
not put anything, no.
Okay.
What are we at currently for vacancies, I guess you'd call it?
We have lots of room.
We're at probably 10 acres. We've got acres and acres, and we stack them 3 high.
Oh, perfect,
So-
perfect. Are we at 40% of capacity?
If that, I mean, we have.
I would doubt it.
We have Mount Hope, the practice soccer fields. That's actually allotted cemetery towards Great Plains Lutheran. To the west is allocated cemetery property. So, yeah, we're well beyond anybody in this room's or grandkids before we run out of room.
Terry,
So-
do we own land west of the trees there?
Yes.
It's farmed now, right?
Right.
Really?
Yep, we go to about where the retention ponds start, is cemetery property. So, and then we own obviously all to the south.
Yeah.
But
I didn't know that.
But even within the existing plotted, I mean, we have hundreds of I mean, probably well over hundreds of plots available for purchase. And reclamation, just so you know, is when Shelley purchased one and then she decides to leave Watertown, we buy it back from her, is what reclamation
And then
is.
we sell it at the current going price,
So we buy it at what they paid for it?
what they paid for it.
Right. So, you get people who in their 30s will buy lots, they get new jobs, they move. After a certain amount of period of time, we'll approach them to see if they want to sell them back at the price they purchased it from. If they bought them for 200 30 years ago, that's what we buy them back for. And then we resell them at the current value.
Can they sell them to someone else, or do they have to sell them
No.
back to you?
Nope, it's. Yeah, no, there's no subleasing of plots.
With the increase of cremations that we're seeing, the mausoleum, does that include for cremations to be placed there, or do people not put cremations in cemeteries?
Well, we created a new niche, which we have, what was the first one, Jay? How many in the hold?
I'm not exactly sure how many the crematorium will hold, but, there is another side that we can open up when that one fills, so we're going to have plenty of room out there for that as well.
It costs the same, a plot versus
Slightly cheaper for columbarium. I mean, I'm gonna say about $100 cheaper. I wanna say, what is it, $630 for a plot and like $480 to get a niche. So it is cheaper. Plus you don't have the opening closing cost.
So that's what it's called, a niche, is where a crematorium,
Right.
a niche,
Yeah.
okay.
Where you would place the urn. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions, comments for Park and Rec, Cemetery, Forestry? Awesome.
You know, we could have done this, Monday night last week?
Sure.
I mean, I watched you, you said a half hour, 45 minutes if everything goes well?
Well, that's if nobody did any talking. I qualified
Be
for
happy we did
45
it
minutes.
tonight.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and when you get home, you can't go to sleep anyway. I could have been here all night. I might as well have been.
Shelley, could you put the wellness center on till next week?
Well, thank you so much, and I'm going to step aside and let John move in here.
Okay.
Are you leaving town, Shelley?
I'm leaving town?
Well, I'm asking it. Like,
Why?
well, Terry said you're so
I just wanted to buy it back here because you got prime real estate.
I didn't even know I had bought one. So,
It was
I
Dave.
mean,
It was Dave.
nice. See, he's already pre-planning.
And he took out an insurance policy, so you know.
It is good to be prepared. All right. Prairie Lakes Wellness Center.
Okay. Pretty simple accomplishments for 2017. We opened up a beautiful $24 million facility. And also our goals there is just, I'm sorry. Our goals there is to maintain this high standards of programming and customer service. And just to give you some numbers, the first 4 months, that we were open, full months, April, May, June, and July, last year, let's say in our old facility, for those 4 months, we took 26,500 people came in and used the facility over those 4 months. This year, the new facility, we had just a little over 72,000. So, as of today, we had 550 new memberships sign up since March 20th or March 18th. So, it is well used, it's well accepted, well appreciated. So, we have met the needs there.
John, how many total memberships do we have besides the 550? I don't know, maybe that's hard with
We're running
LATA.
about that 1750 right now, so let's see here. Expenditures as far as our proposed 2018 budget, we're looking at about a $278,000 increase for expenditures, about a 19% increase, which is pretty much off the grid compared to other departments. But we're experiencing a lot of things that unknown territory. There's some line items that we can pretty much figure what it's going to be by the end of the year, but there's just a lot of other line items that have come surprised us. Personal services, $99,000 alone for staffing. We had to increase front desk staff by a couple, janitors and lifeguards, and then also we had a half-time position that we share with the city hall as far as cleaning goes during the daytime. So all those, along with standard increases, have come to about $99,000. Insurance premium, that was a huge adjustment. We budgeted $15,000 for 2017 and came in at $46,000, $31,000 difference. And we went from basically 69,000 square feet to 104, one pool to two pools, and that was a little surprising. We knew it was going to increase, but not that much. So other factors that I feel are worth mentioning as far as our utilities. We're pretty much in line for gas and water and sewer, but our electricity is just really jumped out. And I've met with Todd Chambers and Adam Cars from Utilities last week to see if we can, where is it all going to or coming from. And they have installed a meter to find out what is our peak time, which we're all guessing is going to be between 4 o'clock in the afternoon to about 8 o'clock in the evening. But we're working with them also on working with Pitts Construction to work with our HVAC and see if there's things that we can tweak, and that. So we just want to cut that down, but we are pursuing that. For machinery and equipment, that is an item that we did not have budgeted last year because of the FF&E of the new building, but we have a $49,000 budget for machinery equipment. Approximately $45,000 is new equipment that we get, that we want to replace our old equipment, and then also we're looking at a blade and a heat housing unit for a four-wheeler for snow removal during the winter months. And that. Let's see, insurance. Let's see, building maintenance. We did not have that budgeted last year because we felt everything was going to be new and as well as going to be warranty. But warranty will go off in February of 2018, and that is just a complete unknown what we're going to need to spend. Pool chemicals is about $6,000 higher than what we anticipated. We're right now spending about $1,350 a month for pool chemicals, which we kind of anticipated $850 for, but obviously it's increased. Phone services is $5,000. Again, that's just what all the other departments are paying that extra $5 per phone per month, and that's about it for that. I have as far as expenditures. If anybody has any questions on that.
Sean, I do. I saw this on the other pool too. Chem, drug, and lab supplies. Do you buy drugs for the pool?
No.
That's just an extra word.
That's compared to all the other departments too, and that should be just pool chemicals. But
Okay.
but that's a finance office
Just
question.
checking.
It's a finance office question.
So the other departments are buying drugs.
Yeah.
I have a general question. You said your phones are going up. Well, you added more phones, what have you, but
That's
we've
correct.
seen phone go up in other departments. What's the deal with that? Why are the phones going up? And it's a meaningful number.
That's at the going with VAST versus having our own standalone phone system. And basically you don't have any of the capital costs, but you do have an operating cost of a per line. And then, there's you can go ahead and tell them what it all, because it's got internet and
It's offset. It went from we buy all this stuff, so we're essentially saw it as a service
right, yep,
now.
and
I recall
they're
going through
yep,
that.
and they're one that with the new building they would have needed to buy a complete phone system anyway, and so it's basically you're taking that one big large lump and putting it over.
In addition, it's also the MPLS lines that will be coming up that will be able to connect all the city buildings together. So it's hard to compare it, but yes, it is a bigger cost.
John, what are we looking at? If we can get some of those utilities squared away, have they got any idea? Is that going to decrease? Are we hoping like a 5%, 10% decrease, or?
Don't know. They haven't gotten back to me yet on the meter that they installed. But also talking with our warranty individual from Pitts Construction, we're looking at tweaking the temperatures. We're still trying to figure out the right temperatures. It's a big building. Some areas are warm, some areas are cooler than that. But we want to try to get, if you tweak it 1 or 2 degrees, that's a big difference in that. So.
Well, a couple of comments. The electrical one really surprises me because we spent quite a sizable amount of capital dollars in that building going to LED lighting, and with the expectation that we would see significant reductions in our power consumption. And I know we got a lot in that building, don't get me wrong, but so that surprises me. But and I would offer this out. John, you and I and Shelley had originally worked up our proposed budget way back when, and I there's a lot of ownership in that from my standpoint. I know there is in your guys' as well, but I'd really like to sit down and look at what we had done 2 or 3 years ago, see where we're at today, and I'd like to work with you if that's okay.
Sure. I remember the total figure came to about 1.2 million, a little lower. So I still have those numbers. And
just because we were part of that discussion up front and setting what the expectation is, we take that very, very serious. There's the caveat that we don't know what the finished product was going to be at the time exactly, and we don't know. There's a lot of unknowns, right? But I would offer that out, and because I think it's very important that we look at our costs and not just assume that it is what it is. And I know that's what you're doing, but having been a part of that, I'd like to do that. And
Mike, I appreciate you guys doing that, because I remember going through that, and you're never going to get it exactly right. But I'd like to document what you guys do, because as we look at other facilities, we know we need some institutional knowledge on that, because we've got other big structures potentially coming. So I would agree with that.
And the total utility bill, about 20,000 of that is we're still paying for our old facility yet. Things have not been completed that. So, and I did a rough estimate of what we owe, and it's about $20,000 since basically mid-March through the end of July. So,
John,
that'll just continue to add until things get settled.
We're using the ice chiller system, is that right, for the gymnasiums for cooling? How cool do we keep those gyms typically?
72, 73. It's we had it down to 70 at first. I mean, and first night we had volleyball league. It was cold, chilly. So we turned it up to about 73, and it's not muggy in there, but it by no means it's cool either. On that, so
now those chillers, do we get any kind of a discount for any off-peak electrical consumption? Because typically those run at night. That's the whole idea.
They freeze at night, then they run the air over the ice during the daytime.
Right.
And to be honest with you, Bruce, those chillers were not operating until probably mid-July. And
wouldn't that make a big difference, don't you think?
Well, you hope so.
Yeah. Thanks.
How long are we expecting till utilities would know?
Well, after visiting with you guys tonight, I'll probably give them a call and see, and we'll have to sit down and go from there. But this week, I'm sure he thought it put up about a week. He felt that they'd get the proper numbers.
Okay.
I would also suggest that we get a hold of what's his name, Mike Fisher, down at North Plains or whatever it's called, North Plains.
And Stewart also, because of tweaking the temperature.
I think we need those are individuals that we had for the engineering of the HVAC and the electrical system. So a lot of our projections were power consumption, and then supplied over to the utilities for calculations on utilities. So,
and we felt that we would, we have more to cool and to heat, but all our new, the new equipment is more efficient than what we've had in the old place too. So.
Same thing with the pool and the chemicals is why that would be. Well, we know we got more water, right? So we know we got to treat that. So we should have expected that. But I just think we need to look at what we projected and where we're at today. And there's not going to be one thing that's going to take to get it in line. It's going to be tweaking.
Yeah.
It's going to take on a facility like that. It's going to take a year or two to really get your arms around how you best run that facility. So, but I think it really needs to take a real concerted effort. And so while we're on that, I'm going to ask one question. When we dissolved your board, it was my understanding that we weren't going to like get them out of there and they're gone, but that they were going to move into an advisory role and not just be gone.
That's correct.
Is that
we have
not
not
happening?
met yet, but that's the majority of them agreed that they would like to sit on and be an advisory board, and we planned, but it's been busy yet. But yes,
well,
we plan to.
Yeah, the mayor and I had talked about that, and she wasn't aware that that was the plan. So I think that personally, if that wasn't the plan, it should be the plan. And it looks like that was the plan. That we had talked about that.
Yes,
So.
and then, like I said, the majority of the board would like to be involved.
Because then that should be added to that liaison type.
Yeah.
I'll add it to the list.
Yep.
Just a comment, it's probably worth pointing out that the revenue side does not reflect any payments from Prairie Lakes. I mean, that goes to a different fund, so just want to point that out.
Mm-hmm.
John, I noticed that you have 12 tournaments planned for 2018 and estimated 7 for this year, and you've had up to now you've had 4. Is 12 an honest or legitimate number? It would seem like that facility would be busy.
Tournaments involves racquetball tournaments. We plan on having a pickleball tournament, dodgeball tournament. These are not going to, plus I have a couple volleyball tournaments. Now, my volleyball tournaments, I'll net $6,000 to $10,000 on a weekend. Those are great programs. But, we have a racquetball, we might, net $500, and the dodgeball and pickleball yet we don't know. But, so those are just smaller.
Yeah, I was thinking volleyball and soccer.
No, yeah,
and
because
basketball
I did not include the tournaments that the Soccer Association or other organizations that will put on tournaments there, because we will not receive any revenue from them.
That goes through Park and Rec.
Park and Rec,
correct?
yes. They get the money, and then, as we mentioned earlier, then we pay the bills.
Yep.
Wellness Center.
Works out great for them.
I think it's a great deal.
So, I just want to, this might be off the subject though, but going under the Park and Rec department, it's been smooth, it's been good, and I appreciate the help from Jay and Terry, and we're working very well. We met a number of times, and we'll have a lot of things that we'll have to hammer out, but we do, as I think Shelley mentioned, we have one gymnasium, the auxiliary gym for our members, which is being used exactly how we proposed. Just mom and dad or the kids come in there and just shoot around, run off energy, pickleball in the mornings during the school with a lot of our members. And that, but in the evenings it gets busier, and the majority of the time I think we're going to be able to have one court over in the Big Four, as we call it, and to use, and that's huge. And then we put up a schedule every week of what's available, so our members and our front desk people know. So it's working out very well so far.
John, does this include any revenue from internal advertising or sponsorships?
No.
Okay, because that's another thing we'll have to talk about, and that's we'll be meeting with Ryan next week, 2 weeks, whatever it is, the gentleman that we hired
Yes.
to do that. So, that's another thing that we counted on up front on this thing, and I know that's changed a little bit, and I understand why that's changed. I've shared what the last agreement that we had with Mayor Thorson was with Mayor now, and not sure if that's exactly where we'll stay at, but there should be some revenue that comes in from that.
Yes,
and
I'm hoping so, and to offset our equipment purchase or to go into our general revenue fund, that'd be great.
And we should realize that maybe as soon as sometime even late this year, but without question, we should be starting to see some of that in 2018.
Yeah, great.
And that would be annual revenue that we would be able to have. So.
And just for the ease of finance, when those sponsorships get made, they really need to, state, is there a specific purpose, so that we know whether there is some restriction and what we need to do with it as a finance department. Because right now, those sponsorships have been for naming rights and the cost of the building. Premier didn't really care, but we had building needs costs, so that's where they went. So it's if somebody wants it to go for a specific purpose, whether it's equipment, whether it's replacing something, whether it's capital costs, it would be nice to have that. Or if they say, I don't care what purpose designated by the city, state that, and then you as a council can make your intention so that we know whether we have to restrict that money and use it for a specific purpose, or whether it can be used for any purpose. It really helps us on our cash flowing and figuring out what money can be used where and what fund it would go to. Just a comment.
What we do expect, can't see how my little cord's covering up. What we do expect is when we talk about advertising, that would be like the swim club has their signs, the softball fields have theirs, where we would have maybe signs in some of the areas, the basketball courts, the scoreboards, and that revenue has always been, and in almost every case, the people that are doing it aren't looking at it as a donation as much as they are advertising. Those dollars would be planned to go back into the O&M budget to offset. Now, we go to a naming rights scenario, we name a gym or whatever it is, then
right.
would fall into
And then I think when you get that money, it needs to be there. It needs to be put as a revenue line item of advertising. I mean, it needs to be specific. Just yes, so that we know how to account for that, and we don't get anybody bent out of shape for not allocating money appropriately. So,
John, what is that? 49,000. I know it's going towards equipment replacement. What particular items?
Well, we're looking at purchasing about 10 cardio machines. The common question a lot of people have, well, how long do they last? Well, if you talk to a sales rep, 3 years, you should get rid of them. Well, you talk to peers of mine from facilities around Minnesota, South Dakota, North Dakota, they keep them around 8, 9 years, and that, which I'm very comfortable with. We have quite a few that 12 to 14 years. And just like the lawnmowers, the longer you keep them, the more downtime you have, the more money you put into it. And our equipment is a little bit different than the lawnmowers and things for the parks, because people are, you got to have mowers to mow grass, but people are not paying extra for that. People are buying a membership. They expect to come in, have good equipment and updated equipment, and that's what drives memberships. And that, so in your question, I'm looking at about 8 or about 10 cardio machines, and next year will be about the same, and then we're going to be caught up and have decent age machines.
So we're probably looking at this dollar amount for at least the next year or so, and then.
Yeah, I think, and I have it figured out, and I think 19 will be the same, and then 2020 we might be looking at 15 to 20,000, unless we expand.
Okay.
So.
And you do have in your request, you do have a certain amount of new equipment too, and I think that's why in later years, if you keep adding, you're going to keep adding to what you're going to replace.
Yes.
And
so
there's a combination of why it would increase in the future. So I mean, not all of it is all replacement, and you'll have that intermittent with your replacement costs.
Another item that we decided not to put on, but we're looking at expanding our parking lot. The first 4 weeks that were open, of course everything was brand new and new to the people, but the east parking lot and the south parking lot, the main parking lot, was between 4 and 8 o'clock at night was just maxed. I mean, there's no place to park. And of course, you come in the building, it's not that crowded, but so there's a area just east of the east parking lot, between the east parking lot and 15th Street, where I met with Rob Bainan, and we felt we can put in fit about 84 cars. And I got a quote for curb and gutter and blacktop of about $180,000. But Rob, we feel we can put in the next year millings from the streets and just have a temporary parking lot, because we're looking at probably November through March that we will need it, and we can get by, which practically very little cost to put in that, and then we'll get by for a couple of years. So.
And that area was planned for in the layout of the site plan for parking lot expansion.
Yes. So and that, but there'll be very little cost. Any other questions? It's we're still learning. We're still taken our lumps on some things, but we are much smarter now this fall as we head into a busy time than we were last April. But it is well accepted and well used. There's no argument there. So appreciate the support.
John, what would we say our capacity is for memberships? Any idea what number that would be?
As far as I'm concerned, it's unlimited, Bruce.
Night shift.
I'm greedy.
Night shift. All right, man.
We don't, we could do I suppose a guy can go to Adam, at JLG, and they can do they have numbers where as far as the size of the facility, but, it's just, okay, you have a full parking lot and people can't find place. You go in and it looks very, very doable. Well, we have 2 classes going on at a time. There might be between those 2 group fitness rooms, there'd be 50 people. And then they're all in one place. And then you have the pool that could fit, 200 at a time. And there might be, 50 people in the gymnasium. So, I mean, it's big enough. They spread out. Always the concern people have would be your cardio machines, how crowded it is. You can't get on a machine. And I know last spring when we were at our max the first 4 weeks, they were never all full. Now, of course, we had 150 new members that first 4 weeks. And now we have, I anticipate by the end of December we'll have 800 new members. That's what my goal is. And I feel very comfortable that we'll hit that. And so we'll see what it's like then. But I could probably find some ballpark numbers. Yeah. Okay. So.
If there aren't any more questions, and that concludes agenda item number 2 for the presentation of the budget.
All right. Is there any old business? Any new business? Any liaison member reports? There's no need for executive session. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, moved by Danforth and second by Way. All in favor, signify by saying aye. We are adjourned.